What's your psycho ex story? Packed up our tent and took all our stuff away to who knows where while I was elsewhere watching a band, which was pre-arranged, the first night of Glastonbury Festival, because he decided I'd been possessed by demons. He thoughtfully left my sleeping bag out in the open for me though. Hurrah for the Krishnas who gave me safe shelter for the next few nights. Not my ex, but I had a huge crush on one of my friends. She had recently broken up with her boyfriend, mutual since they were both graduating and going separate ways, so I thought I might have a chance with her. We started talking more and eventually, she told me a secret. She left some stuff at her ex's house and asked to go get it. She told him it would be too hard seeing him again and asked him to leave the place unlocked. Then she brought her mom and 2 sisters along and stole everything of value and trashed the guy's house, smashed all the windows, cut up the sofa, kicked holes in the walls. She told him it was like that when she got there and that it must have been burglars since he left it unlocked. She wasn't mad about the breakup or anything, just thought it would be fun. Her and I are no longer friends and I really regret not tracking him down to tell him what she did. Broke into my house, left an engagement ring on my bed and a note saying how he'd masturbated in my sheets because they smelled like me. This was all after I broke up with him. She threatened to cut off my dog's dick. So yeah. My ex-wife turned on me after I found out I was sterile. When I came home with my diagnosis from the urologist, I went to hug her. She pushed me aside and said maybe we should just get a divorce. From that point on, she would berate me about my condition. We would be watching a perp get arrested on the news and she'd say Betty's got sperm. We'd drive by a homeless guy and she'd say Betty's got sperm. We tried a few treatments for my condition. Each time she'd say, if this doesn't work we'll get divorced. There were other threats. Then one day I decided that I would just go ahead and take care of that divorce on my own terms. I packed my car up and left. As I drove away it was like the sun started to shine again. Years later I married someone who loved me despite my condition. Her psycho ex story, she told everyone that I abandoned her out of the blue. 11 years later, he still calls my parents and grandparents trying to get my phone number. We only dated 2 months. My last GF on 2 separate occasions got drunk and fell down on the street, one time busting her bottom lip open. During heated drunk arguments and screaming he hit me and helped he's beating me while I tried to help her up. I've never been violent with a partner in my life. I stayed with this person for almost 2 years. The most emotionally abusive relationship I've ever been in. After we broke up she continued to tell people that I had actually hit her until I shared screenshots of a convo we had when we were together of her admitting it was all a lie told in the heat of a drunken argument. But even then, my current partner tells me that women are still warning her of my history of abuse. I very rarely go out to bars or pubs anymore. I once dated someone for about 3 months before finding out that she had a second personality who she believed hunted demons. It's quite jarring to find out that you're literally dating 2 personalities. Seemed shy, sweet, and timid for the first couple weeks we dated. Then the super unlikely lies began. She had tuberculosis. She was Russian royalty. She had mob connections, etc. Broke up with her when things started getting uncomfortable. So she started using coke and sent me a long-winded message a few months later, out of the blue, blaming me and my abandonment for her drug problems. Said I was the only person she could love. We only dated for like 2 months total. They were into serial killers. Allet. Flirting was them telling me how much they would love to remove my smooth skin. Swiftly noped out of there. She's studying to be a forensic scientist. I broke up with a girl. I use the term broke up with loosely because I thought we were friends with benefits and she took it a little more serious. Anyways, she said that she was pregnant. I know, only a little crazy, but she maintained this for about 9 months. She would send me pictures of ultrasounds, and after the baby was born, she'd send pictures of her breastfeeding and in little outfits. She maintained all of this until the baby was about a week old and I asked for the paperwork to have the kid added to my benefits and a DNA test. Once I tried to do what I thought was the right thing. Despite my freaking the duck out, It came out that it was her friend's baby. Fucking bitch was nuts. TL. Doctor, crazy sorta ex pretended she was pregnant and made someone else's baby sick on her titties to convince me she had my baby. I had another girl who was into ass to mouth. Well, one day she decided now's a good time to suck his poop pecker and proceeded to immediately spit something out and go back at it. It sounded like she was spitting out a watermelon seed. In the moment I didn't think much of it, but after the lights came on, there was a piece of brown lettuce stuck to the wall. I ended up having to repaint so I would stop seeing it. Edited, added another story I was told should be in the original post. I told her to leave my house after I found out she had cheated. She grabbed a large knife from the kitchen and charged at me with it. I knocked it out of her hands and almost lost my finger in the process. She picked up the knife from the floor and cut her own wrist. It was the deepest cut I had ever seen. I grabbed some paper towels and duct tape and wrapped her arm about 100x. I got her in the car and drove through a snowstorm to the hospital. I dropped her off and told myself I was done with her. Still traumatized by that night. Not really an ex-paresi, but this guy in my group of friends in college was really persistent, even though I had a boyfriend at the time. When I stopped hanging out with him, he sent me pictures of his wrist slashed and pictures of him crying. Called my phone more than 50x in an hour and told me he's gonna kill himself. Blocked him from every social site and my phone too. He never did what he threatened to do. Luckily, we aren't in the same section next semester, so I never really saw him after that. My ex isn't scary psycho, just a rotten delusional liar. He's the guy that, if you caught him having sex with another woman, he would look over at you and say, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just sitting here playing crossword puzzles." The worst. Multiple brief stories about the same guy. We were off and on for 5 years. After him becoming super controlling for the last year, going through my phone, following me to work and school to see if I was actually there, so on. He broke up with me and I realized enough was enough and I wouldn't take him back. I started dating my best friend shortly after. The following transpired from the day we broke up until now. It's been 5 years. 1. Shows up at my at the time boyfriend's house. Peeks in through the windows of all the rooms including my boyfriend's 3-year-old's room looking for me. Used to drive by late at night. Park his car a street over to watch for me. 2. Left a bag full of condoms and sex toys, not mine, on boyfriend's front step with a note saying, "Have fun with your whore." 3. Posted my nudes and Facebook profile link with my phone number on 4chan. 4. Bought the house across the street from me and would tap on my window at 3 to 4 AM every morning. 5. I was sitting outside my house with a friend and he showed up at the driver's side window waving a gun around threatening to shoot us. 6. Showed up at my house with a gun and said he was going to kill me and then himself. 7. I finally had him Baker acted and he talked himself out of it and then called me to come get him. 8. Would send me videos of him cutting his wrist. 9. Still randomly calls me confessing his love for me and says if he doesn't wake up to me in 10 years he's going to kill himself. 10. Harasses my friends when he sees them in public asking them to talk to me and convince me he loves me. He's married and has 2 kids. I'll never be free. Pretended to be pregnant. Showed me faked ultrasound pictures. The penny dropped for me when it had been 6 months since our last meeting and she hadn't grown at all. True story. She had a kid 9 months after that point with some other guy. A friend told me I'd last second dodged a bullet. Dated a super manipulator. Lied the entire time we dated. Found out she cheated on me with her boss. That was what started to peel away her false exterior. Soon after found out she was addicted to painkillers when I had to miss work to go pick her up from her job where she had a seizure. Found out eventually she took a mystery pill she found. Her excuse for using pills. She claimed to have miscarried. Hint hint. She didn't and was never even pregnant and couldn't cope. Found out the boss wasn't an isolated incident. She was also ducking my neighbor. Randoms from the internet. Had a 55-year-old sugar daddy and an ex-con who was giving her free pills. routinely would cause fights with me and attack me physically, and due to her small stature, 4 feet 10, I had no choice but to leave when it would happen. So she would cut herself to get me not to, signed me up for joint credit cards without my permission, then maximum them to the tune of $10,000. The final straw was when I finally got distance from her. She broke into my house to steal my dogs and smashed some family heirlooms, called the police, and she just openly started punching me in the face in their presence. Got a no trespass order. She married the ex-con who is back in prison. This absolved me somehow of the debt, I think. Either way it disappeared. Edit. Thanks for the replies and support. I've decided to clarify some things. I did indeed find out that the miscarriage was a fabrication. The dogs were never taken or harmed successfully. Jerry and Reggie are currently looking at me from the foot of the bed waiting for their footy. Close bracket. However, I was left with a pair of cats she wanted, who were never vetted, and thus started a kitten factory. When I finally got the trespass order, guess who lived just far enough to not break the order? That's right. The neighbor she was screwing. Guess who let her stay? Same ducking guy. Well, I guess he got his in the end. Kind of. We had a litter of 8 kittens yet to be weaned. When I got rid of her, it was her crutch to stay in contact. She insisted she had homes all lined up and couldn't renege on them. So I gave her the 8 kittens. Well, I found out recently, she never rehomed them all. Just 1 or 2. She dumped the other 6 on the neighbor. The neighbor got fed up and threw all the kittens in the surrounding woods. I still see a stray or 2 around the neighborhood, but they are very skittish, and I haven't been able to do anything about them. The kicker is I got the blame by other neighbors. The cats ended up having a second litter of 8 and then surrendered to AHS. It was pointed out she may have been bipolar/mentally ill. She was prescribed Prozac by her HCP. Why? I don't know. But the prescription ran out and she had to see him again, and I know he recommended she saw a psychiatrist and I don't think she ever did. Edit 2. For clarification, she fabricated the miscarriage story, which I obviously tried to be compassionate about, which is why I put up with all this bullshit for as long as I did. A guy that used to hit me for no reason. Never on the face though, always on the body or legs. Most days he was fine. Some days he just lost his temper for the most trivial reasons. One that comes to mind was me sitting upstairs playing PS2 in the bedroom. We had a few broken floorboards up there, and they were beside where I was sitting on the chair, so it made a noise anytime I moved ever so slightly. We both knew about this and knew it needed fixed. Anyway, he came upstairs and started yelling at me for banging on the floor, then flipped the chair over and I ended up on my back, still in the chair with a cut hand. I was going through a kind of shitty time in life, so I let that stuff go on way longer than I should have, and just convinced myself it was my fault somehow. Looking back, it really wasn't my fault. The day I moved out of that place was pretty liberating. She showed up at friend's house at 3 AM looking for me. I was there. She had never been to said friend's house before. Still unsure how she found it. Not even an ex, just a dude I went on one date with. We went to the movies, and it was okay, but I wasn't interested in a second date. When he asked me for a second date, I politely told him I wasn't interested. He flipped shit, started talking about how he had a dream about me before we met, and he knew we were meant to be. Then threatened to kill himself if I didn't go on a second date with him. I blocked him everywhere and changed my number. Dated a guy who was verbally and emotionally abusive for about 8 months. Broke up with him numerous times, but he always threatened me, so I caved. Finally broke it off for good, and he tried to break into my apartment and almost broke down the door. Called the cops and went through the process of getting a restraining order. After the serving of the row notice, he stalked me and sent me threatening messages along with leaving voicemails of calls we had months ago. Ultimately got thrown out for lack of physical violence. Apostrophe. Edit. Forgot to mention he had a ton of guns and threatened to kill himself. Get me fired from me job and ruin the lives of everybody I cared about. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit universe.